Hey everyone, it's Triple Mango Threat, and today we're going over the Prismari Performance Precon upgrades. These are 10 cards I would take out and the 10 I would add to the deck only for $20. Let's jump right into it. So starting with the commander, we have Zaffai Thunder Conductor. For 2 blue and a red, it's a 1/4 human shaman with Magecraft. And Magecraft is whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, we're going to scry 1. And if that spell's mana value is 5 or greater, we're going to make a 4/4 blue and red elemental creature token. If that spell's mana value is 10 or greater, Zaffai is going to deal 10 damage to an opponent at random. So this deck is very heavy on instants and sorceries, and we get an extra benefit just by casting instants and sorceries already. We can make a 4/4 elemental, or we can even deal 10 damage to some opponent at random. So adding cards to this deck wasn't really hard at all. It's just like a normal instant sorcery deck how I would build it. So we have a lot of mana reducers like Goblin Electromancer and Curious Homunculus. Curious Homunculus is double-sided, so at first we can tap it to add mana, but we can only spend it on instants and sorceries, and at the beginning of our upkeep, if we have 3 or more instants and sorceries in our grave, we can actually transform it. And the transform side is Voracious Reader, and it makes it where instants and sorceries are going to cost 1 less, and it has prowess, which means whenever we cast a non-creature spell, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn. This can add up pretty quickly because this is a 3/4, and since we're going to be casting a lot, this could be something we hit our opponents with pretty often. We can deal our opponents a lot of damage with cards like Gutter Snipe, Firebrand Archer, and Electrostatic Field. Whenever we cast an instant or sorcery or a non-creature spell, we're dealing our opponents at least 1 damage or even 2 with Gutter Snipe. And if we have cards that give us Storm that are already in the deck, we could be doing a lot of damage to our opponents just by doing what the deck already wants to do. There's actually a lot more sorceries in the deck than there are instants, so if you'd like to replace those, that's also an option, but I wanted to add Hypersonic Dragon. You can make your sorcery spells as though they had flash, so you don't have to spend $40 on a Vidalcan Orrery. You can spend 50 cents on a card like this that does the same exact thing, because most of our deck is instants and sorceries, so I think this is a great budget option. Young Pyromancer. Whenever we cast an instant or sorcery, we're going to make a 1/1 red elemental creature token. So not only are we making an elemental off of our commander, but we can also get them off of Young Pyromancer, and this is just for any instant and sorcery. It doesn't have to be mana value 5 or greater. Next, let's talk about Fact or Fiction, one of my favorite commander cards. We reveal the top 5 of our library, and an opponent separates them into 2 piles. We choose what goes in our hand, and the other goes into our graveyard. Well, it's not horrible if our instants and sorceries go in our graveyard. We can actually find ways to cast them again or bring them back to our hand. Next, let's talk about Frantic Search. For 2 and a blue, it's an instant. We can draw 2, discard 2, and then untap 3 lands. So it's like we really didn't lose anything because we spend 3 and we get to untap 3 lands again. And again, this is an instant, so our commander really benefits us by playing this. And my personal favorite addition to this deck is Mizzix's Mastery. We can exile an instant or sorcery in our graveyard, and then we can copy it, and we can cast it as though we weren't paying mana for it. And then we have to exile this card. Well, it has an overload cost for 8, and this means we can cast all instants and sorceries in our graveyard for free. This is insane, and definitely one you should add. Now moving on to the cards I would take out of the deck, let's talk about Epic Experiment for X, blue, and a red. This lets us exile the top X cards for our library, and for each instant and sorcery with converted mana cost X or less, we can cast that card without paying its mana cost, and then we put all the cards exiled that weren't cast into our grave. I really find this is a hit or miss. It would be really nice if we could cast all the instants and sorceries with the top X that are X or less, like something like a Genesis Wave except for instants and sorceries. But that's not the case. We can only grab one of them, and the rest are going in our grave. Next is Humble Defector. We can tap it to draw 2, and then we have to give it to an opponent, and then it's just not that good. There's a lot better cards we can substitute for this that are going to help us draw 2 cards over and not just give our opponents cards as well. Traumatic Visions. This is a counter spell, and it has basic land cycling, but if you want to counter something, it's 5 mana. We can have a lot cheaper options with cards like Counterspell for 2 blue. We don't really need the basic land cycling. It is nice that they're giving that option, but I feel like this is too much to counter a spell. Narumeha Master Wizard. When it enters the battlefield, we can copy target instant or sorcery spell, and we can choose new targets for the copy, and it gives our wizards +1/+1. It has flash. It would be better if we had a spell that was an instant or sorcery to copy something for a lot less mana, so this one was pretty easy to take out of the deck. Fiery Fall for 5 and a red. It deals 5 to target creature. Again, it has basic land cycling. I don't want to pay 6 to deal 5 to a creature. This is just not how I want to play the game. Call the Skybreaker for 7 mana. We can put a 5/5 blue and red elemental creature token onto the battlefield with flying. It has retrace, so that means we can cast it again by discarding a land and also paying its mana cost. There's a lot better things we could be doing with 7 mana, so again, I took this one out of the deck. Erratic Cyclops for 3 and a red. It's a 0/8 with trample. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, you get +X/+0 until end of turn, where X is that spell's converted mana cost. I thought Curious Homunculus would be actually a better option because it makes our instants and sorceries a little bit cheaper, and it does pretty much the same thing, except I know it doesn't give the creature +X where X is the converted mana cost, but I just chose that one instead of Erratic Cyclops. Charmbreaker Devils for 5 and a red. It's a 4/4 devil. At the beginning of your upkeep, return an instant or sorcery at random from your grave back to your hand, and whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, it's going to get +4/+0 until end of turn. This can get really big, but again, I just wanted different cards than this one. Elemental Masterpiece for 7 mana. We're going to create 2 4/4 creature tokens, and we can pay Is It Hybrid twice to discard this card and create a treasure token. This is not good at all. Again, a lot better things we could be spending our mana on. And last is Living Lore for 3 and a blue. When it enters the battlefield, we're going to exile an instant or sorcery card from our grave, and its power and toughness are equal to that exiled card's converted mana cost, and whenever it deals combat damage, you may sack it, and if you do, you can cast that exiled card without paying its mana cost. This is just a very long way of being able to cast our instants and sorceries for free. We do this already with a deck, and we don't need to go through these many hoops to be able to do that. Now, before I end the video, I want to give a shout out to Dragon Shield. This is not sponsored by them, but they released their Harry Potter sleeves May 28th, which is really awesome for these types of decks. Harry Potter has a school of magic, which is what Strixhaven is all about. The sleeves are each house at Hogwarts. We have Gryffindor, Slytherin, Hufflepuff, and Ravenclaw. I think the sleeves could work great with the similar ideals as the Strixhaven schools. You can check out more of the Strixhaven precons at the playlist at the end of the video. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.